I don't know what the term for someone who's been to Amsterdam. I look like an Amsterdammy.
Yeah. Welcome to Brand Bridge, the podcast about how brand can form a bridge from where you are to where you want to be. I'm here with Rhiannon Lowe. We call you Rhi at the agency, and you've recently been nominated for Strategist of the Year by the Transform Awards. So you're in the top 3. You got down to the final 3. So I'm here with one of the top 3 strategists in Europe. Very good to have you here, Rhi.
Pleasure to be here, Jack. And that's a really good introduction. I feel a bit overwhelmed by that, but thank you.
You're welcome. You deserve it. It's been great working with you. But I just want to start with asking how you got into brand strategy in the first place.
I had fallen in love with an organization and I believed in the power of their brand and I believed that it could be stronger. And I wanted to join them to help them to do that. So I fell into branding in that sense. And that was my first role at Cancer Research UK.
Wow.
So I worked in brand for 8 years at that organisation and loved every minute. And I was one of the team that was part of the rebrand of Cancer Research UK at that time.
Very cool. And so what was that insight that you had about how it could be stronger? Was it just a sense that, oh, this could be more than it is? Or was it a particular approach?
I think they were an organisation doing incredibly powerful work.
Yeah.
But with a difficult story to tell.
Yeah.
So research isn't always an easy thing to connect to life. And yet it's very important that they obviously get a lot of support and they continue to inspire people to support them.
And we have a process which is a 4-stage process, part of which is helping to define meaning for an organization in an effort to create a brand that means more and achieves more. So I know that that's something that you're particularly passionate about. And I was wondering if you could just speak to how does meaning play a role in that?
So I think there are many brands out there in the world that sound the same, that look the same, that are just nuances of each other. And that doesn't really do much for anybody. It certainly doesn't help to galvanize your team internally to believe in something that's really true to you. And it certainly doesn't cut through externally and say, hello, come and buy me, come and engage with me. It just doesn't stand out in the market.
Yeah.
So increasingly brands need to find their sense of meaning. And what we talk about at RBL is about finding that kind of that truth and authenticity.
Yeah.
It's what is true to you that no one else can say.
Right.
We have a process to help organizations to find that real meaning.
Yeah.
And that's about really getting under the skin of an organization, not being afraid to lift the bonnet. It's about spending time building relationships with people from across the organization to understand their views about what matters to them. Why do they get out of bed in the morning? What are they here to do? Where do they see the direction of the organization going? It isn't simply for the senior leaders to do that. It's about for everyone to help to shape that. And by listening to that and by bringing people on board, you create advocates for the process, but you also find incredible gems and nuggets and those little nuances and points of differentiation that help to make that brand that you then create true and authentic and powerful. And that's how you find meaning.
Wow. And when you think about society and the fact that loneliness is soon to be the leading cause of premature death in the UK. And so the moment, the kind of cultural moment that we're in seems to be kind of primed for meaning. And you see brands trying to achieve it through purpose. And Adam mentioned in our first episode that purpose is kind of getting a bad reputation because maybe people are overreaching and saying we're really all about purpose that they can't really deliver on. But meaning kind of says, what is your organization actually about? what do your people see as your the meaning of the organization and the purpose that it plays in the world, and defining that so that it's really authentic and resonates with everybody inside and outside of the organization.
I think purpose is a really interesting thing because it's really important.
Yeah.
But it's like everything in marketing, in branding, it gets overplayed. So if you don't do it with any genuine thought and consideration, if you just grab a couple of words, mix them together into a line, and you think that that gives you a sense of purpose, then you're not going to have any purpose.
Right.
So meaning is about authentic purpose, if you like. So it's about genuine understanding of an organization, but also critically not doing it in a vacuum. It's about understanding what that organization, what that brand means to the people that it needs to engage with.
Right.
So we've talked a lot about internal audiences, but obviously all brands exist to drive some form of action, engagement, connection with an external audience. That's about the bridge. That's, as we've talked about, and you've talked about it in other sessions. It's about making sure that whatever you do connects with those audiences as well. That's what the true meaning is about.
Right, great. And so this is all very inspiring. And now to get into the nuts and bolts, how do you go about developing a brand strategy that delivers that?
Branding is a little bit like walking. You have to do it step by step, okay? That doesn't mean it's slow, and that doesn't mean it's not intense, and that doesn't mean it's not going to get your heart racing.
So brisk walking.
Brisk walking, yeah. You need to do it properly.
Right.
And you need to go through steps, or at least that's what we believe. You go through stages, right? So the first stage is about that deep immersion and that understanding. That's about talking to the right people, the people that matter. So inside the organization, outside the organization, it's about building a really well-rounded picture of what that brand is all about, what it stands for. So whether that's kind of a deep dive, sort of qualitative interview or a session with an individual, whether that's about, a really powerfully interactive workshop where you're synthesizing ideas and themes and allowing people to input it in different ways. That's really critical to set the foundations and to understand the state of play. From there, you know what works well. You know what isn't working well. You know what strengths there are to be harnessed, and you know what weaknesses there are that you need to find a way to resolve. And once you have that, you've got a blueprint, if you like, a sort of a starting point on which to think about the future. And that's when you start to craft strategy.
Nice.
And you think about, where that brand needs to live in the world. So what is what is the world that it wants to create?
Right.
And that's really important. You've got to have stretch. You've got to have ambition. And it has to be in keeping with where the organization or the business is going. We don't develop a brand that doesn't deliver for the organizational's direction. It's about connecting the brand strategy with the business strategy. So that vision is a really important piece. It's like, how do we see the world? What role do we want to play in it? How are we going to get there? How is the brand going to help us to get there? And that's the kind of the first big picture piece that we have to do. And then after that, we are working through, what that then means in terms of the experience that a brand provides, or what does it need to offer in order to do those things?
Right.
How does it need to engage? How does it need to come across? What personality does it have? Your tone of voice, all of those important elements. And that sort of cascades down until we get to the single idea that sits at the heart of the strategy, the compelling strategic idea that everything is built around.
Nice.
The most important thing with all of this is that it's done collaboratively. You don't want someone coming in telling you what your brand should be. It's about shaping it with you. And that is really, really important. So it's about using your expertise and your knowledge of your organization and blending that with an external perspective who can really help you to sharpen and to refine what that story is
And what misconception do you run into most frequently in the brand strategy development process?
That brand strategy doesn't really matter and it's all about the visual identity. I think that's a pretty common misconception in branding.
Right.
And that what we're doing is just an exercise to get to quickly be able to do the nice, fun visual side of things.
Right.
I think it's really important that people understand that the strategy is the critical driver of great creative. So if you want to cut through that complexity, if you want to create a brand that has that standout, that has that meaning, all of the things we talked about, it has to be based on great strategy. That's how it's going to do great things for you. That's how it's going to drive your performance.
Right. Great. And what advice would you have to someone managing a brand in terms of trends or things to look out for in brand strategy in 2024?
So I think we're in a world where there's a lot of fakeness, right? And AI is only blurring that and making it even more of a complex issue. So what is truth? What is not?
Yeah.
What is authentic? What is not? So finding your truth and being authentic as a brand is even more important.
Yeah.
And that's why I would say for anyone who's considering doing this process, now is the time. It's okay to have a little bit of introspection.
Right.
Find your sense of identity. It's beautiful to be different. And every organization has their own story to tell.
Yep.
So now is a good time to think about what that story is and to bring it together into something that's going to create that impact that you want.
Right. Because as most organizations move towards maybe the opposite of something that's really authentic, because it's easier and there's so many more tools to do things faster and more efficiently, but perhaps lacking the thing that makes them them. So there's an advantage in taking the time to develop that.
And think about your brand as an asset to help you to do all the great things that you want to do. It is something that's just not important to consider. It is part of your arsenal. It's an amazing tool. It's an amazing platform to create the change that you want to deliver the performance that you need to get the reach that you want and the engagement that you have to in order to be successful.
Yep. So that sounds like, to me, moving brand from kind of a hygiene project to more of a growth driver, considering it in a different category than perhaps it has been in the past.
Yes, absolutely. It's really important that your brand isn't just seen as the logo that you put on the side of a building. It's something that is fundamental in helping to drive your business forward. You've got to get it right. There's all of this urgency to respond to what's happening in the market, to create a new tactic, to do something really fast. Take the time to invest in your brand, get it right, and it will deliver long-lasting change for you.
Excellent. Thanks, Rhi. That's great. It's been great having you on the podcast. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Jack. It's been great.
And thanks for listening. And we'll be back soon with more episodes of Brand Bridge. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, and Amazon. See you soon.